So tell us your journey of PR and what's happening at the PRCA and everything that's happening with the members.
Sure, and let me say thank you for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to be talking with you. So I'm Francis Ingham. I have two principal jobs. I'm the Director General of the PRCA, which was set up 50 years ago, and I'm the Chief Executive of ECO, which was set up 30 years ago, coincidentally both on this anniversary. So the PRCA operates predominantly in the UK, but increasingly overseas. We're the largest PR association in the world. We represent and the regulate bit's important, over 30,000 people in the UK, and we have offices in Dubai, Singapore. We're about to open in Buenos Aires, and we launched PRCA Russia a couple of weeks ago, and we represent, regulate and give guidance and insight to our members via the PRCA services. ECO is the umbrella body for 41 associations around the world, including in India, and we provide international network of senior level people, again giving links around the world, intelligence, and general leading the industry forward ethically and professionally. My background is in public relations and politics and public affairs. So I went to university at Oxford, where I read politics, philosophy and economics. I was the press officer for the Oxford Union, dealing with lots of high-profile people from all around the world. And then I went to work for the Conservative Party as an advisor, worked in public affairs subsequently to that. And I've been running the PRCA for 12 years now, and ECO for 7 at the same time. We have moved the PRCA from being a very niche, tiny organisation to being the world's largest PR body. And I announced today at our national conference in London the intention to expand even further around the world and to push one really important thing. 2 years ago we expelled Bell Pottinger for its unethical behaviour, and on arguably the world's most famous PR company. And on the back of that we've grown very strongly, and associations around the world have embraced the need to be ethical.
So what do you, I mean, if PR agencies generally are open to doing PR for anyone who writes the check. So and the organization, you made, another PR company may be doing PR for, I don't know, a rogue country, a rogue organization. It's PR is PR, and turning them. So tell us what do you define as ethics, and if you want to touch upon the case in which somebody was expelled, that's up to you as well.
So let me say this: I see the global PR industry in the 66 countries in which we operate, and I'm perfectly aware that there are different expectations, standards and norms in those different countries, but there are certain core principles I think that hold true. And on the back of our expulsion of Bell Pottinger, I'll come back to that in a moment if that's okay, ECO announced in Helsinki in 2017 10 principles as the baseline for which PR practitioners around the world ought to behave. And they're things like tell the truth, think about the public interest, don't stir up racial hatred, don't spread fake news, don't do astroturfing, basic things that we can all adhere to. So I recognise we're at different stages of how we behave, and that's perfectly natural. But I think there are basic principles we can adhere to as well. Now, in the UK, take the UK example, we have a really well-established code of conduct that we've enforced for exactly 50 years. And it has a very rigorous legalistic process for adjudicating complaints and for making public is crucial, the results of those complaints. A couple of years ago we received a complaint from the Democratic Alliance, the main opposition party in South Africa, about the work being undertaken by Bell Pottinger arguably, as I've said before, I think, the world's most famous PR company, being undertaken in South Africa by it. It was to work for a very uncontroversial client, Oak Bay Capital, but it was very controversial work. It was a campaign called White Minority Capital, saying that essentially, if you were poor or whatever problem you had in South Africa, and if you weren't white, there was a reason for it, and it was about the control of capital by a minority of the country, and the only way to stop being poor was to take control of that capital. Attention. And it's a terrible example of the power of PR used for ill. We consider that complaint, we expelled Bell Pottinger after a very lengthy and thorough process. Within 1 week of expelling them, the company no longer existed.
Wow.
And that to us is the prime example of self-regulation working, of the industry having ethics, and of ethics being global, because the work being done was being directed from London, but the work was being delivered in South Africa. On the back of it, the industry in the UK could have run away and said, we don't want to be involved in the PRCA, they expel people, and when they do, bad things happen. They came to us. We've grown by at least a third in the last couple of years, partially on the back of the expulsion of Bell Pottinger, and I think we've helped to set global expectations and global standards. And my message to PR practitioners would be this. 10 years ago, the same piece of work, the same complaint, I am certain Bell Pottinger would have survived it. But social media has changed the whole atmosphere in which we all work for the better, and there's nowhere to hide. And I would say to PR practitioners around the world, do the right thing, be ethical, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because there is no place to hide, and it's in your own personal interests to do the right thing and be ethical.
But how do you decide what is ethical? That's a very, all the principles which you spoke about, the 2-3 principles which you studied, they are very debatable. Not the principle, but actions on that principle are very debatable. So a certain, when you say don't create hatred among communities, for instance, and I'm touching as a PR person, I guess I have liberty to touch sensitive topics, but when we do have, for instance, in India, we do have a bit of say there's the BJP, which is the right wing, so-called right wing party, and so there are people, they have a very strong PR team, and they are engaging occasionally and debatably, and let me put all these words in it so that none of us get called up for it, but sometimes it may be, and hundreds of examples around the world, it's not just them. They may be pursuing or promoting interests of a certain community or group or caste, which some people call ethically incorrect, but some people just call promoting their valid interests of a particular community. So
I completely understand that, and we've always said at the PRCA and ECO that it's controversial causes. And if I look at the PRCA's membership in the UK, we have Philip Morris International Tobacco Company. We have the UK Department of Health. One might well say they have slightly conflicting...
Very conflicting.
Objectives. And it's not for us to judge on the promotion or otherwise of smoking. But what we do say is we can have rules about how you promote what is a legal point of view on both sides. And that promotion involves a certain core principles, so not stirring up hatred, having regard for the public interest as you justifiably see it. And we would always say that there's black, there's white, and there's a lot of grey. That there's stuff that is clearly wrong, there's stuff that's clearly right, and there's a lot of debatable stuff in the middle. And that's the matter of judgment that I think mature PR associations, and I'll say there are mature associations in each of the 66 countries eco operates in, the mature associations can take a valid judgment on. And you know, when we consider complaints or issues, they're considered by people who are not conflicted, so are independent of that complaint or that issue, and who are senior, and who have a perspective, and who take their responsibility seriously. And I think that's the only way you can juggle these conflicting demands and interests.
So let me touch upon another probably topical as well as difficult subject, and the subject of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been in the news all over. You have the every day the Facebooks and the Googles and the collection of data, and everything to and PR kind of depends on knowing on data and collection of data. I mean, the more we know about our target audience, the more we are good at influencing the target audience. So our job is kind of influencing a certain target audience, which we know about. Mm-hmm. So where does this entire debate go in your perspective in terms of securing data, in terms of securing people's information, but at the same time we need that information to do good PR?
I make two distinctions. We are very clear that the future of the PR industry in the UK and around the world is about data-driven insight. But that data needs to be anonymised. And you've had the case of Cambridge Analytica and others where it hasn't been anonymised. And that's the key issue that...
Is it anonymised another debatable term?
It could be, but I think securing data that aggregates, we target different sectors of people without knowing specifically who those people are, that's absolutely fine. Having the personal data of people and how they personally operate, and then targeting them is a different matter. Now, I completely accept that Amazon knows a very great deal about my personal tastes and my life. I opt into that. I can opt out of it at any point I like. I know that Vodafone...
You can't really.
I can stop using it.
It'll stop your life.
I can stop using it. I know that Vodafone knows exactly where I go and where I am. I think those are justifiable things so long as they are regulated and kept within boundaries. The temptation for commercial benefit to go over those boundaries is clear, and that's where, first of all, self-regulation works, in fact, that's where personal morality works in the company level and at the personal level. Then where self-regulation works, and if that fails, that's why government step in, and that's perfectly understandable. I take it to a broader distinction as well, though. So our PRCA code says be truthful, but also observe confidences. And there is, and I'm being honest about this, an inherent conflict in those two competing requirements. So if your client you happen to know is gay, but pretends to be straight, or if they have mental health illness, but say they don't, then you have those two competing priorities. And that's where we would say that personal morality and then self-regulation and organisations that can juggle those competing priorities have a role to play. And when I lecture in universities, and I've lectured at on a regular basis, the University of Westminster and the American University in London and elsewhere, I always say to students of PR who are going to be the big people in our industry in the years to come, these are matters of judgment. These are the grey areas. And this is why you have to give serious thought to morality and to ethics and to professional standards so that you can make those judgments correctly.
So what would your 2-minute suggestion to the hundreds of people or thousands of people who would watch this and try to learn about the principles of PR, what would you tell them?
I'd say be true to yourself. I'll say in every instance of ethical choice, I've seen the 12 years I've been running the PRCA and the 7 at ECO, it comes down to people knowing they're doing the wrong thing, knowing they're making the wrong choice. And they can only make the right choice by having given things proper thought ahead of it. But I think generally people who transgress our codes or other people's codes, or who wreck people's lives, do so knowing they're making the
People always from their heart know whether they are doing the right thing or not. I mean, the heart always knows kind of thing.
I cannot believe, for example, with Bell Pottinger, that people looking at it and seeing the content that is being driven by their company's work and seeing the consequences, I can't believe they would have looked at it and thought, this is cool. I really believe they must have looked at it and thought, this is terrible, but... And it's when you get to the but moment that you ought to say to yourself, hang on a moment, let's pause. Let's think about, can I look myself in the mirror if I do this thing? And I think by and large, if you pause, look in the mirror, you're going to say no when you're going to do the right thing, not the wrong thing.
Wow. So, I mean, there we could continue talking about it, but I think you have a national conference to go to, and you've taken out very precious time for this. So, as a few more, like as few closing remarks, where do you think, because when I go out, I see the many exhibitors who have exhibited their products. A lot of them is technology, and so where is PR going in the future? Where do you think the next 10 years? Because I think that's the length that one can really somewhat predict in any industry.
The next 10 years. So. I first began the membership body in the UK in PR 15 years ago. And my then boss said he didn't think the internet was here to stay.
Wow.
And, that gives the perspective, I suppose. I disagreed with him, I'm happy to say. So it's hard to say where it's going. But what I do know is this. I think artificial intelligence is a big thing. We don't know how it's going to play out. We speak with agency and in-house leaders all around the world about AI, and they say, we think it's going to be epic, really important, really powerful. And then we say, in what way? And they don't really know. And that's the reality. Most people don't really know what the big changes ahead of them are after all, do they? Not just now, but historically. But the 4 big trends we see in the industry are these. Chief execs are investing more in corporate reputation. So they see the failure of big companies because of their reputation crashing, often on social media. So they're investing more in it. The second one is marketing spend continues to move from advertising towards PR because we're more agile. We can tell a story better than others. We see PR agencies offering a different range, a broader range of services than they have done previously. And we see the growth of digital. And I think digital skills are pervasive, massively important to the future of the industry, of the economy globally. And the data we run with ECO every year says PR people are investing in them. They're making that shift. The big challenge they face is who have those skills. And the problem they face, if I might say so as a comment, is that the people at the top, probably including myself, often don't know what they're looking for in the people they're recruiting. They don't understand the skills that are needed. So that's the big challenge, that bosses have to be almost as versatile in digital as the people they're hiring. And that's a big challenge for the future.
That's a lot, and I think you're leading it absolutely from the front with the PRCA, and it's absolutely amazing what your organization has been able to do in this very confused and challenging way of PR. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to your listeners.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so
very
much.
much.